Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on Dark Phoenix. Now, I had to pass up seeing this in theaters. I had a kid in April, so there was maybe one or two movies that I was able to check out in theaters from like May to I guess maybe late April. Like I saw Avengers Endgame in theaters and Godzilla King of the Monsters, but for the most part, I kind of had to just pick and choose what I saw, and Dark Phoenix was just getting ripped apart as far as reviews and just leading up to this whole movie. There was the whole like Disney Fox merger going on, and there was just a lot of stuff kind of up in the air regarding all of the Fox properties and especially X-Men. Just going right into this movie, there was people that were just kind of like pushing it off to the side because they wanted to see the X-Men, eventually join the MCU. They just didn't care about this movie. And then you also had the fact that X-Men Apocalypse did not really perform that well, and it wasn't that great of a movie. There's stuff I like about that movie, but for the most part, that's not really a movie I will kind of find myself revisiting, but I enjoy certain things about it. But Dark Phoenix, man, I was totally going into this movie expecting to hate it, but there was something about it that, like, I really enjoyed myself watching this movie. And it's not a great movie by any means, but I feel like it's a serviceable kind of action movie. And it's not like the action's the best or anything like that, but I just enjoyed these characters, and the performance in this movie are, I would say, fine. You have Michael Fassbender in there. James McAvoy is always great. I loved everything they did with Sophie Turner's Jean Grey, all the stuff they did with her character as a child, and all of the psychological stuff. There's always just great psychological sort of all the stuff with like Cerebro with Professor Xavier and Jean Grey. I thought all that stuff it's always some of my favorite stuff in the X-Men movies. Now this movie, it definitely has its problems. It's just, it doesn't really have that great of a narrative. The story in this movie is just nothing that's really that interesting. The first like 30 minutes of this movie, I was like, damn, this is pretty entertaining. Like the first mission they go on into space to rescue some astronauts that are stranded there after their space shuttle being hit by, debris in outer space. I thought that sequence was pretty good, and a little bit after that it sort of starts to take a little bit of a dive, and right around that time is when Jessica Chastain's character is introduced, and for the most part she's my main issue with this movie. I just could not get into her character, and just everything about it really seemed boring and just lackluster, man. I just thought her character, and I love her as an actress, I think she's just absolutely phenomenal, but there wasn't anything interesting about what her character was trying to do, who she was. Like, I don't even remember her character's name, or even if they said it. And I don't know, it's just everything about it I just was not interested in. I just thought it was just really poorly written. And that's unfortunate. I mean, I don't really know much about Dark Phoenix from the comics or anything. I know it's like one of the most popular X-Men sort of storylines. That and like Apocalypse are like the two most popular ones. But just the story overall just wasn't really that interesting. And it just comes down to Simon Kinberg being the writer and director, and he was the writer on The Last Stand, and there's even an action sequence in this movie, and it was in the trailers and all that stuff, where the X-Men are confronting Jean Grey after she's sort of gone AWOL and she's unable to control her powers, and all of that sort of stuff in this like neighborhood, this confrontation with Jean Grey and the rest of the X-Men. I just thought it was just done in such a poor way, and just, I don't know, just the way all of the action played out. It's just kind of like, you could really tell that it was Simon Kinberg's first film as a director. And sure, the guys produced some pretty good stuff and maybe some not so much, but I don't know. It just, this movie, from the moment it started to the end, you could really sort of feel that lack of like style. You know, you have X-Men First Class, which is just loaded with style, with Matthew Vaughn directing that movie. And even the Bryan Singer movies, I feel like those movies have style, but like I just couldn't feel this guy's like vision watching this movie. There just wasn't that sort of sense of style that was sort of giving that little extra bit of something special visually, I guess. But yeah, for the most part, I did enjoy myself, but just some of my gripes about the movie is the story just wasn't really that interesting. I like to seeing all these characters interact, and you know, there's some cool moments. There's some great stuff with like Nightcrawler in this train sequence where he's like whipping his tail and like stabbing dudes in the neck. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, I was definitely surprised about this movie, how much I actually enjoyed it. You know, with it having like a 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like the lowest grossing X-Men movie of all time. Like its worldwide box office is, I think, $250 million, which is, for a movie of, you know, how much they spend on these things, for it to make that worldwide is really bad. Like that may not even have covered the production budget. But you know, it's unfortunate, like the X-Men franchise had to fizzle out this way, and like watching the ending of the movie and just seeing like how they, like, I feel like all X-Men movies end at the school, and with all the our main characters sort of in their teacher roles with, you know, all the younger not X-Men students, but I forget what the school is actually called, but you know, you have the gifted youngsters. I think that's maybe somewhat similar to what it's called, roaming the halls, and you know this franchise is just dead, and Disney's gonna reboot this in the MCU. So, but yeah, like I said, I had a decent time watching this movie. I was pleasantly surprised, and you know, I love the actors that are in this movie. It's just a shame that they were sort of put into a movie that was kind of subpar, but it's definitely not the worst movie out there. And don't let anybody tell you that this is an abomination, because it's absolutely not. There are some entertaining things in this movie. It's just not one that I think was necessary to rush out in theaters, but definitely watch it if it's available, you know, on a streaming service that you can check it out. So that's my thoughts on Dark Phoenix.